Hello everyone, welcome to today's story. What if a simple garden of custard apples could hide a secret about love and destiny? What if behind the sound of noisy machines in a wood factory lies a dream big enough to change two lives forever? And what if a quiet family dinner suddenly turns into a moment of truth when a mother discovers the woman her son loves is already carrying his child? This is not just about fruits, farms, or factories. It is about choices, silent gazes, and the fragile line between the past and a new beginning. Will Tuna accept the warmth offered to her? Will Alex find the courage to speak the words his heart has carried for so long? And when the truth finally comes to light, will it unite them or tear them apart? Stay with me until the very end of this story, because every silence, every pause, hides an answer you cannot miss. And don't forget to hit subscribe. Let's reach 10,000 followers together so I can bring you even more stories filled with love, pain, and unforgettable twists. Are you ready to find out what happens when love is tested by fate itself? The garden stretched wide beneath the pale morning light, every tree bending under the weight of its fruit. Custard apples, large and heavy, swayed gently as though whispering the secrets of ripening and waiting. A woman stood at the entrance, her voice calm as she welcomed a visitor, allowing them to step into her world of green and shade. "Take what you need," she said, her tone half weary, half proud, like someone who has lived with the earth long enough to know both its burden and blessing. The visitor walked slowly between the rows of trees, hands brushing against the leaves still damp with dew. Each fruit held a quiet story of time, some already full with sweetness, some still waiting for the sun to finish its work. The basket grew heavier with every cut, yet the silence of the orchard carried more weight than the harvest itself. The rhythm of shears slicing into stems echoed like a muted heartbeat, each cut a choice between what is ready and what must be left behind. When the basket was nearly full, the visitor paused, looking at the abundance with a sense of wonder and restraint. Life, it seemed, was not about taking everything at once, but knowing when to stop, when to honor patience. The woman at the gate nodded gently, her eyes reflecting both relief and quiet pride. Soon the fruits would be weighed, sold at the market, exchanged for coins, yet their true worth lay not in price, but in the lesson they carried. Ripeness arrives only in its own time. And in that orchard, beneath the whisper of leaves, the air trembled with the fragile stillness of choices waiting to be made. The clatter of machines filled the vast workshop, a constant hum that blended with the scent of fresh-cut bamboo. Sunlight streamed through high windows, scattering dust into golden fragments that danced above the steel and timber. The owner moved with quiet certainty, his steps heavy against the concrete floor as he explained each process. The stacks of bamboo waiting to be split, the sharp blades that turned wood into chips, the long belts carrying fragments to waiting piles. A guest followed, wide-eyed, taking in the enormity of the space. "It is large," he whispered, almost to himself. The owner nodded, his voice steady but laced with pride. "When I bought it, the machines were still new. I repaired some and added more. Now we can produce day and night." Workers moved in rhythm, their bodies almost mechanical after long hours. 10 hours a day, the machine screamed, yet the output barely matched the hunger of contracts waiting outside these walls. Beyond the workshop, eucalyptus trees and forests stretched across the land, roots feeding into the cycle of demand and labor. The air smelled of resin, of sweat, of persistence. In a corner, the guest paused, struck by the contrast. Modern engines carving ancient trees, industry grinding against silence. The owner's face carried both fatigue and determination, like someone balancing the weight of survival with the dream of progress. And still, amid the noise, there was an unspoken question. How much could the earth give before it had nothing left? The bamboo snapped, the wood splintered, and the machines roared on, indifferent to the fragile line between abundance and exhaustion. Here, in this workshop of noise and dust, life was measured not in moments, but in shipments, deadlines, and the endurance of human hands. The cafe was small, tucked away from the heat of the afternoon, its windows open to let in a restless breeze. The clamor of machines from the workshop had faded, replaced by the soft clink of porcelain cups and the quiet murmur of voices. Across the table, two men leaned toward one another, their words carrying the weight of dreams and the fragility of trust. "I've just returned," the guest admitted, his fingers tracing the rim of his cup. "What I want is to bring clean agricultural products abroad. People there, they crave authenticity, purity." His voice carried both ambition and uncertainty, like a man standing at the edge of an uncharted road. The owner's gaze deepened, steady as the roots of the trees he harvested. "I already have fruits here. Custard apples, grapefruits. They are plentiful, branded, even certified. But my reach is small. I've sold to supermarkets, sometimes exported a little, yet never enough to matter." Silence hung between them, broken only by the stir of spoons in dark coffee. Then, like a thread weaving two lives, possibility emerged. "If you can open the doors abroad," the owner said softly, "I can provide the harvest. We will share the weight and the hope." Outside, motorbikes roared past, life rushing in its usual rhythm. But inside the cafe, time slowed. It was no longer about machines nor fields, but about the pulse of faith between two men daring to join hands. Their voices, hushed yet firm, became the sound of a bridge being built, from soil to sky, from a small orchard to the vastness of the world. Dreams, like fruits, ripen only when tended together. The air at the farm was softer, filled with the faint cries of chickens and the rustle of leaves in the wind. Tuna bent over her small child, her movements patient, deliberate, the rhythm of a mother balancing care with endless chores. Her hands smelled of soil and milk, the marks of a life lived in quiet resilience. It was then that Alex arrived, his footsteps hesitant but full of longing. He paused at the doorway, watching her cradle the baby, the glow of tenderness surrounding her like morning light. "What brings you here so early?" she asked gently, lifting her eyes. Alex's smile was faint, almost shy. "I finished work sooner today, and I missed you." The words hung between them, fragile as a leaf trembling in the breeze. Tuna said nothing, only adjusted the baby in her arms, while Alex reached forward, his fingers brushing against the child's tiny hand. The baby stirred, sighed, and settled again, as though granting permission. "I'd like to take you and the little one to my home," Alex whispered. "It's been too long since my mother has seen you both." There was a pause, a quiet calculation in Tuna's eyes, the weight of duty to her farm, the pull of a rare invitation. Finally, she nodded. "Let me gather a few things." Alex exhaled slowly, relief softening his shoulders. As he held the baby while she packed, he marveled at the small bundle of warmth in his arms. In that moment, under the roof of a modest farm, silence spoke louder than declarations. It told him that love, if patient, might one day be returned. The road to Alex's home wound through quiet fields, golden under the late afternoon sun. He carried the child carefully, every step measured, as though afraid the silence might break. Beside him, Tuna walked with a small bag pressed to her chest, her eyes drifting between the path ahead and the man who carried her world so gently. Before leaving, Alex had called his mother. "Prepare something warm," he had said softly. "I'm bringing them home." Now, as they reached the doorstep, the scent of simmering broth greeted them like an embrace. His mother appeared, her face lighting with joy that spilled past words. She welcomed Tuna and the baby inside, her hands eager to touch, to hold, to make them feel as though they already belonged. "Sit," she urged, guiding them toward the table. The baby stirred in Alex's arms, and he whispered with a tenderness that surprised even himself, "She's growing so fast. We'll buy her new clothes soon. Something soft, something that fits." Tuna's lips curved into the faintest smile, her eyes flickering with something unspoken. The house, once quiet, now pulsed with a warmth it hadn't known for years. The mother moved quickly between the kitchen and the table, fussing over every detail, while Alex remained rooted beside Tuna, his presence steady, unwavering. It was not a grand gesture nor a sudden confession, but in the way he carried her child. In the way his mother prepared food as if for family, a truth began to settle. This was more than a visit. It was the beginning of something larger, a space where longing could finally take shape. The table was set with care, bowls of steaming rice and fragrant dishes filling the small room with warmth. Tuna sat quietly, her child now asleep in another room, while Alex's mother moved with a joy that could not be hidden. She served each plate as if it were an offering, her laughter soft, her eyes shimmering with unspoken hope. "Eat more, my child," she urged, placing food before Tuna. "You must stay strong." Her voice trembled, but it carried something more than kindness. It carried longing. She glanced at Alex, then back at Tuna, as though weaving them together in her heart. As the meal continued, silence settled into the spaces between words, heavy with expectation. Then, like a candle flickering to life, the truth revealed itself. Alex's mother noticed the subtle signs, the glow in Tuna's face, the quiet shifts in her body. Her breath caught, her hand pausing mid-air. Slowly, realization dawned. Her eyes filled, her lips trembling into a smile that could no longer be contained. You are carrying his child, aren't you?" she whispered, her voice breaking with joy. The room stilled, time holding its breath. Tuna lowered her gaze, her silence more powerful than any spoken word. In that moment, the mother's joy spilled over, years of waiting condensed into a single heartbeat. She reached for Tuna's hands, holding them as tears shimmered. "At last," she whispered, "at last the house will be filled with new life." For Alex, watching the scene unfold, it was as though the world shifted. He had not yet spoken his heart, yet life itself had spoken for him. Evening shadows stretched across the house, softening its edges, wrapping the rooms in a quiet tenderness. The meal was finished, but the warmth of it lingered, not only in the bowls and dishes but in the hearts that had been opened. Tuna sat near the window, her child sleeping soundly in the next room, while Alex remained close, his presence steady as the fading light. His mother moved gently between them, her face radiant, her hands restless with joy. Every glance at Tuna carried gratitude, every touch of the baby a silent prayer. For years, she had longed for this, the laughter of children, the promise of continuation. Now, with the truth of Tuna's pregnancy, her heart spilled over with a joy she had once thought too distant to reach. Alex's gaze lingered on Tuna, heavy with a love unspoken but undeniable. He saw her strength, the quiet endurance that made her both fragile and unbreakable. He longed to tell her that she was not alone anymore, that her burdens could be shared, her nights less heavy. But the words caught in his throat, replaced instead by the soft rhythm of his breathing, a vow carried in silence. Outside, the cicadas sang, their voices steady in the dusk. Life beyond the walls continued, yet inside, time slowed to the pace of a heart learning how to hope again. Love, the story whispered, does not always arrive with thunder or fire. Sometimes it comes gently, like fruit ripening on a branch, like a child stirring in sleep. And sometimes, the greatest lessons of life are found in the quiet recognition that even broken lives can bloom again.
Trong một khu vườn nghe nặng trĩu, quẻ, xưởng gỗ ồn ào, hai tiếng người tưởng chừng như tách biệt lại gần giao nhau. Chủ xưởng cùng người bạn từ xa về bàn về giấc mơ nông sản sạch ở Việt Nam ra thế giới, trong khi ở trang trại nhỏ, Tử Na lặng lẽ nuôi con, gánh vác cuộc sống bằng sự kiên nghị. Alice, người đàn ông luôn quan tâm âm thầm, đến thăm, đưa cô về nhà. Bữa cơm đơn giản như vậy trở thành những khoảnh khắc định mệnh. Mẹ Alice phát hiện Tử Na đang mang thai với con trai mình, niềm vui vỡ òa, mái nhà bừng sáng. Tình yêu âm thầm hóa thành sợi dây gắn kết, câu chuyện khép lại bằng dư âm hạnh phúc, đôi khi đến từ những điều giản dị khi trái tim biết mình đã yêu.